Alright, so I realized I could make videos if I just talk in an application and, I turn my controller off and this happened. Obviously, I don't have a camera. I'm working on that. Working on a lot of things in my life, but there's one thing I always liked was fighting games, and kind of stuck in between like the SF4 generation and whatever the fuck was going on in 2005. Like, I guess in between like online kind of like, that's me. That's where I'm from. But I like it when I'm not necessarily an 09er. That was my but like, I guess most of us are technically 09ers in the sense that we took fighting games seriously with SF4. Because you have the ability to fight people, and it's the coolest thing. It's really different. It's not like, oh, I got a group of friends and we beat each other up. Like sometimes you go to an arcade. Like for me, I had like a video rental place, and they had like a cab of NBC 1 or 2. I think it was mostly 2. And sometimes they switched, and I had a pizza shop had KOF, but yeah, it's different now, man. You can play people online and shit. It's cool. The problem is developers don't realize how delicate fighting games are when it comes to making mistakes and just overall having to be perfect. Not that everyone needs to be perfect, but because ultimately, no matter the game, we're gonna find little tricks and little things to do that make the game a little bit more bearable or a little easier to execute things, because as technology gets better, they add more and more. I guess, like, what I'm trying to say is there's a difference between making input shortcuts and making inputs just more lenient, in the sense of the window timing, the buffer window, and things like that. There's a difference, and we've had shortcuts with plenty of games, but this doesn't mean, like, say for example, KOF games, there were plenty of shortcuts, but they were, particular windows to execute them. And I think accessibility, the idea of it, is fair. There's fair ideas in it, and there's also plenty of bullshit, in my opinion. I'm kind of for and against it, like, because I understand ultimately that no matter how you slice it, fighting games or video games, and games should be about fun first. And let's be honest, the human brain can only absorb so much information at a time, and I feel like the competitive nature of fighting games, the fact that you have split second decisions you have to make, even more so than MOBAs in some instances, really takes a toll on the mental stack. And at that point, you're not really having fun, are you not? Like, you're kind of, it's almost as if it's like it's work, you know? Especially like I was playing Blaze Blue, and there's so many different ways to start your combo. There's so many different situations that you have to keep up with in the heat of battle. And in that regard, I understand what they're doing with Guilty Gear Strive, trying to make it more, you don't really have to think about too much about what your combos do. Maybe you got a counter hit combo starting in the air with your air normal. Maybe you got your low starter, your overhead starter. Probably nothing too crazy. I mean, I didn't get to try the beta, but I can say that without a shadow of a doubt that it's harder. Like, some games are just harder that way. Some games, you don't have to worry. You don't have to really worry about so much different combo routes in, say, CVS or Third Strike or things like that. It's pretty much just like, you get a hit, boom, here's your thing. That's what you did. Like, I think most fighting games should be that. I think it should be mostly you got your hit. Okay, did you confirm? Okay, do a combo. Like just something simple like that. And in my regards to me agreeing with it is that. Now, me disagreeing with it is when you have a legacy franchise and you have the presumption that people aren't playing your game because it's hard. I think because me personally, I play Virtua Fighter too. So not Virtua Fighter 2, but I play Virtua Fighter as well, and I noticed that that game pretty much died off because everyone thought that it was hard or it's too complicated. And it's like I'll be honest, yeah, VF4 like you had to buffer multiple throw escapes at one time, like and you had forward, you have back, you have neutral, and on top of that, you have down forward, down back in some cases. You have Zanky motion in some cases, and you had to tech that, and you also had low throws, which not only did you have to tech it with, you only had 3 inputs to tech it when it had the low throw. You had down, down forward, and down back. But the thing with the low throw that made it hard was that you had to add an extra input for the low throw specifically, which is P plus K plus G instead of just P plus K. No, excuse me, instead of just P plus G. And they made it more simpler in FS to the point where now you just have to think about back, neutral, forward. And on top of that, they made it so that you have the ability of choosing to do your throw escape while guarding. So basically, you could hold guard and you can then guess your throw, whatever the guy might have do. Even though you still had a triangle system of you can strike people out, and that's what people did in VF4, Evo, and Final Tune in Japan. Even the Japanese players had such a hard time taking throws that they just smashed. They just hit a button. They just try to work with the triangle system to just beat throws with strikes. That was their solution to making the game a little bit more easier or more bearable in a competitive sense, and more bearable. Now, I don't agree with. I also played DOA, and what happened with DOA 6 was a tragedy. A lot of the technical fidelity was removed. A lot of the setups and unique things that made people unique. I knew this one person who's really good at stagger escaping. I knew someone that they had the setups with this character. I have setups. And it's like that part of the game is removed in favor of I'm just gonna let people sit here on the ground and not have to worry about getting hit. And the thing is that they have force techs in the game. It's just that some characters have better ones. Some characters have legit setups. Some characters, the thing is that you have to do it more than once. Ultimately, like off the bat with anyone, you have to do 2 hits on the ground in order for them to get up, and even in some cases, it's more. Like the shame with that game is that they added all these extra mechanics that just get in the way of the triangle system and the meta that was already enough, if you ask me. And now we have to worry about this guy having a parry in his super. This guy magically just matching sidestep attack. Like before, it was a problem. There was a sidestep attack where you could just do it, and it was like a DP. Like imagine in Tekken if you could just sidestep and then attack, and then you can magically beat out any approach that someone was doing if it wasn't a track move or throw. That thing was ridiculous, man. It was like a dragon punch. Like, it makes no sense. In that regard, I think accessibility can be bad. BB tag, like, to Blaze Blue regular. Like, I give that one a little bit more benefit of doubt because it's a tag game. It has to be kind of mechanically easier in order to compensate for the fact that you need to learn 2 characters instead of 1. But it doesn't change the fact that a lot of those characters are stripped of fundamental tools that made them unique or good in their respective titles and just kind of ruined the whole idea behind it, in my opinion. I kind of feel like it should have been kind of more like a Mugen for anime games. Like, that would have been cool. Like, but that didn't happen, you know? And I think accessibility, in terms of it actually being a thing, is kind of bullshit, because I've seen plenty of examples of people playing harder games and actually being more invested in the harder game. I say that with air quotes, but also it's so true. Than the easier game, than the so-called games that are supposed to be starter games. And developers still think that everyone is a newcomer. Developers, they forget. I mean, think about it like this, man. Capcom made Street Fighter 5, right? And they completely forgot that people started playing the game 10 years ago. Now, what that means is and plenty of character choices that aren't available. There's some still some SF2 characters, there's still some alpha characters missing. There's still third strike characters missing. People, me personally, I play Makoto, and my character's not there, and I thought it was a spit in the face when I saw Seth with V-Trigger 1, Makoto stuff with axe kick, and Fukushima. Like, it was annoying. It was annoying, and I think there should have been more nurturing to those players, especially the fact that they changed a lot of characters that weren't Street Fighter 2 characters up. Like, at least some of the Street Fighter 2 characters still kind of had their overall game plan, but some characters like Sakura and Cody were just completely changed. Juri, like, Sakura wasn't changed as much in terms of like her overall normal tool set, but rather like her EX Tatsu was so important in SF4, so important, and they just changed it. They changed it, the uplift kick, and then you could get the cross under. Like, I get that 4 was a different game, but not even like not even the characters that in SF4 are probably gonna feel the same. Like, I guess a jury's change was somewhat warranted, because not a lot of people could just partition, well, not charge partition, but rather like stock their moves while holding the button, and she was more oriented towards the stick than the pad, so I can understand that change. But just a lot of the properties, and the game being very anti-offense, the game being very it's funny I'm saying that, because that was the main complaint with SF5. I was like, oh, it's too aggressive, let's do this. And now it's like, now that everyone kind of got accustomed to the cheap shit, and people just like, you know what, if I can blow people up like this, I want to keep being able to do it. And we saw less of that, less loops, less drill loops, less stuff like that. And I feel like the crush counter system can be better utilized in terms of just the punishes. I'd rather it just be just the punishes and not in neutral. Like, because I feel like having crush counters in neutral just kind of tells people, oh, you can just throw this button out. And like, yeah, it would be fine if we can just consistently punish, those whiffs. Like with jump-ins and stuff, but a lot of the time, online, especially even offline, like you don't have enough time to. It's the stubby normals, man. No one talks about it, but with the normals are so stubby in Street Fighter 5, man. Like, they took people's limbs away. It's like, why are you making this a footsie-based game, right? You want people to play footsies, but you're taking away people's fucking limbs. Like, it's counterproductive, if you ask me, man. And yeah, I get it. Some of the hurt boxes and hitboxes were pretty crazy back in the day, but like, I don't know. It just, let's be honest, man. Like, we talk about, hey, Street Fighter should be this. It's like, yo, people talk about Street Fighter should be fair and honest and footsie based, and it's like, that was never Street Fighter, man. To be honest with you, bro, like, Street Fighter was pretty fucking scummy back in the day. Like, I played some of the good Super Turbo players and third strike players. Like, that game's scummy, bro. To be honest with you, there's a lot of jumping too. There's a lot of jumping. People think, oh yeah, I can anti-air 100% consistently in old Street Fighter games. That's not true. I'll be honest, it was SF4 that kind of really pushed that whole anti-air shit. Like, even the third strike, obviously you have the parry, so you can't do that. So you had air blocking alpha, and I get it was more like Street Fighter 2, where I guess you can anti-air, but even then, like, There's a certain level of speed to it. Like I think the Japanese played it on a 2 speed higher than North American, but um, yeah, it's weird that people have this perception of what Street Fighter has to be or what it should be when you know they're just picking the game that they were just last comfortable with, which I guess is understandable. There's not enough consistency in that regard in Street Fighter. I think Street Fighter is too different every time, and that's kind of my point. Like, if you want a character that's exactly Legacy, you have to pay me for them. And in the case of Street Fighter, they're gonna be different anyway. And it's like, Tekken 7 did that too. They was like, let's lock all the Legacy characters behind a paywall. Yeah, that's great. They don't want people to have an advantage anymore. They don't want people to have a little bit of one up on people. Like, any little information that you have over someone can just be a 10 streak here for someone, a 20 streak here for someone else, all because they didn't know this one thing, bro. And so you tell them, I have to do this, or I have to get better at this one thing, and now you see better results. It's really that simple, bro. It's not some sort of rocket science that, and I'll be honest, like, I've struggled with that concept myself. I've struggled with the idea of instant gratification, and not so much instant gratification, but it was just like, people ultimately just want to get their shit. People ultimately want what they put into practice to be respected, to be acknowledged. It has a worth. My time should mean something, but fighting games don't really care about your time. It doesn't really matter, because if you're not doing good shit with your time, someone could play the game less and be better than you, which I've done that in some games. I've done that in Virtua Fighter. When I was learning Virtua Fighter, I learned Virtua Fighter at a pace that even they couldn't understand why I was getting that good that fast. But it was just because I had good players there. I had the offline. I had previous DOA experience. Like, it was something. It was something. And it's cool when you could do that. It's cool when you can get better at a game, and it's like, hey, I can learn this game and go back to an older title and learn that game. I can play VF on a fundamental level where I can play the first one, the second one, the third one, and it'll have a certain footing. And I think that's the problem with the accessibility, is you're making the game so easy that people cannot go back to the old games because they're lacking fundamentals, or rather, they can't actually learn the fundamentals of that game because there's so many extra things to lend them a helping hand, like power crushes in Tekken 7, and the rage arts, the rage drives. I'll be honest, the whole Oki being simplified in Tekken 7 makes sense. I agree with it, because a lot of the weird shit happened where you would just get hit on the ground for no reason, and then especially Tekken 5, it's just ridiculous, man. But the holding back thing, I mean, you still kind of punish for it in some cases. It's kind of more obvious for you to look at, where the only problem is that it's kind of become a little bit more stale in terms of, okay, this is this Oki, just go for it. Like, this is this situation, so don't get up. Okay, you have your face down, don't get up here preferably, but it doesn't mean I can't hit you or something. Like, it's crazy, it's all over the place. But in that regard, you go back to second tag and you see all these crazy setups and all this stuff, and it's like, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't accept that fact. I also couldn't accept the fact that I learned the game. I really started to truly learn Tekken with 7, and I wouldn't say transitioning from Corkscrews to Bounds is that hard, or Bounds to Corkscrew isn't not. It's not really that difficult, because a lot of times it's actually the same thing. But the only thing that sucks about Corkscrews is you have to run it forward, and it's just kind of awkward, like the way you have to kind of convert it. Like, you had to learn how to wall carry. I'll be honest, you had to learn how to wall carry in old Tekkens. But now it's like, everybody gets the fucking wall. It's like, just because you took out bounds and people can't bound you at the wall now, you had to overcompensate for it with just adding more combos at the fucking wall at that, bro. Like they changed their mind at one point. It's like, let's add a wall bound. Like, what the fuck? This is just too much shit, man. You know, this is too much shit. And speaking of like simplified Oki, like on a topic of learning fighting games, I think, you know, I grew a little bit more affection for some 3D games because I feel like people have the perception that, and it's true, Tekken and Virtua Fighter, Soul Calibur, DOA, even if you don't know the main thing to do with your character, you always know right off the bat that, I mean, I guess it's a little different in DOA because there's actually holds and counters, but you know that you have to just do like an elbow or like a low or a throw on meaty. I guess Tekken a little less, so it depends if you're king or not. But you know, you understand that, and you feel like even if your opponent's really dominant, you never feel like you're not playing or attempting something. Like, you know, what I'm trying to get at here is rather not that you cannot do it in 2D games, but you can do it. It's just that, let's say you're playing DBZ Fighters and you don't know all the crazy black strings yet. You know, you're not doing all the cool crazy black strings like Go One or Sonic Fox. You're not doing that shit. So you don't feel like you're really playing the game because you feel like people are getting at your setups more. People are, you know, they're not really respecting you as much because your pressure's not as good. And, you know, that's not the case in 3D games because you could just keep the Oki so simple and you have an extra defensive option with sidestep and other things like Sabakis. I think 3D games have a good balance to what I think most fighting games should be in terms of here's something accessible or something not accessible. I just think Tekken pushed it. I think Tekken 7 pushed it a little bit. Not as much as Soul Calibur 6 did. But it could have stayed the same as Tag 2. And I honestly think it would have been just as successful. Because the only reason people are giving a shit now about Tekken, or even DOA in some cases, or even fucking anime games, or play BB Tag, all that shit. Let's be honest. It's like Mike Ross said, it's because SF5 fucked up. SF5 fucking up what they're trying to do with their accessibility, and or just like it wasn't the accessibility that fucked it up, but rather, you know, the whole like no story mode, no this and that. It's like that shit fucked up Street Fighter. That shit changed the FGC as a whole. Like everything about fighting games now is about whatever the fuck Street Fighter's doing, right? It's like, you know, when you on the other side of the fucking the schoolyard or shit like that, you have fucking Call of Duty being real popular. You have games trying to make their games more like Call of Duty because they see the success of Call of Duty, but people don't seem to understand that copying the leader is not gonna make you successful because that is not what makes Street Fighter popular. Street Fighter is popular because of name and legacy. It's not popular because people can play it or people feel like they can play it. You know, I think what Guilty Gear Strive is doing is okay, I guess, but it's gonna be a problem when, you know, you have veterans or you have people that are kind of decent at the game losing the people that they wouldn't otherwise be losing to in the new game compared to the older game. And that was that was the case with DOA 6. Like my friend, he would play people and he would give him little trouble in DOA 6 and he would still win ultimately, but like in 5 the guy doesn't touch him, man. He can't even hold a candle to my man. And I feel like it might be a little less so with anime games because of how they are mechanically, but I'm sure there's going to be some people out there that's going to feel that way. You know, I've had plenty of people that felt that way with Tekken 7, you know, where like, I mean, think about it, man. Have you ever in the past saw Nee make a video talking about, I don't know if I can do this, man. Yo, man, the fucking balance, man. Yo, Leroy, the guy wanted to cry because of a blind man that's kicking everyone's asses. Like, what the fuck, man? You didn't see that before, bro. Like, And these guys are the best of the best, the top of the best of the rest, baby. Like, come on, yo, that's just crazy to me. I don't know, man. I just think that we could do better. I think we should just have good features. We should have a story mode, an arcade. Hello. Fuck, man. Just little things to keep the casuals so that you can make your money and you can keep hardcores happy by keeping the game as competitive as possible, or like not so much competitive as possible, but like you have all the tech there. You have all these little trinkets that, like, you know, in my opinion, I think shows respect for the developer that you took time to actually find this thing. You know, he put this little secret in the game for you to find. And if you didn't find it, bro, like, what does that say about your effort overall? Like, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because I think some games deserve to be more accessible. Like, I just think KOF should be more accessible. Like, let's be honest. The game's not popular because it's hard, bro. The game's not popular because, you know, maybe the graphics suck. Let's be honest. You know, it's not like freaking Art of Fighting 3 sprites or KO 13 sprites like that. That was pretty cool. Because the game has great character design. I think like there's attraction to that game. There is attraction to the game. It's just that playstyle overall. People aren't used to it. People aren't used to really crazy aggression and stuff like that. Or people jumping and not being able to anti-air them 100% of the time. Like, people aren't used to that. You know, especially because you can set up safe jumps in certain angles and you can force TPs out of people and things like that. And I'll be honest, it is annoying. It is kind of like cat and mouse where, you know, I can roll this, or like I don't have to get hit, or yeah, it's definitely something. And I feel like also 14 with the stage is bigger, but that's kind of not really relevant to what I'm saying. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video in my opinion. I pretty much just said everything in one fell swoop. I just wanted to cover all my bases here and what I think fighting games are doing and what we expect out of them, man. Old Monkey signing out.